What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to crank this thing over for the first time and see if it fires up. I already know whether or not it does, but I'm going to make you guys watch to the end to figure that out. We're going to go through though beforehand, and I'm going to show you guys everything that I did to get to this point. I do want to apologize to you guys. I haven't been posting a whole lot recently. I've been really busy, so that when I finally get to work on the car, I've been kind of just ripping and tearing, trying to get things to where it needs to be so we can actually make forward progress on this. I haven't had a whole lot of time to video things and do a lot of editing, so there is a few videos that I will show you guys and a few pictures, and I will explain everything that I have done, but I do want to apologize, guys, that there has been a lot that I've missed so far. Now, if there's anything that I miss or any questions that you guys have about any of the setup that I've done so far, please leave a comment down below. I'll either answer your comment. If it's a big enough question, I can make a video on it, or I can just answer it in the next video. But the channel's small enough, guys, so if you have any questions, just ask down below and I'll get to you guys. I won't leave you hanging, I promise. Now, full disclaimer, guys, before we get started and people start running down to the comments to, bash me, saying I'm a hack or whatever for all of this wiring and all these vacuum lines being all over the place. This is not its final form. I literally just ran everything for the moment to get it to the point where I could run it and actually be able to monitor some of the parameters, so on and so forth. This is not its final position, guys. I've never heard this thing run prior to this point, so I don't know if there's anything wrong inside the engine, and I just want it to the point where I can hear it run and make sure that there's nothing wrong with it, because if there is something wrong with it, I don't want all of this stuff to be, zip tied up and hidden and perfect, because I'm just going to rip it all back out of there to get the motor out if I had to. So this is just to hear it run and get it to this point. This isn't its final form, guys, so don't beat me up too much. First things first, guys, the intake. I ended up switching intakes. As you can see, the old Boss 302 intake is right here. I ended up finding a deal on an 18 plus Gen 3 intake manifold with a JLT cold air intake. Pretty much in brand new condition. It's a little dirty here and there, but overall it's pretty much in brand new condition. The 18 plus Gen 3 manifold is in great condition too. The reason why we ended up switching to this, not only was it to save money on the whole deal, because I got a pretty good deal on it secondhand, but also the 18 manifolds, there's plenty of cases where people have made more power than the Boss 302 intake manifold. I know that thing looks a million times better than the Gen 3 intake manifold. That's no question. But the hood clearance was really coming into play for me. As you can see, this one clears, whereas that one did not come anywhere close to clearing. I've heard people say that they could clear, but it wasn't even close, guys. So for us to be able to run the stock hood and make a little bit more power, I decided that this would be the better route. And it adds a little bit to the sleeper. I mean, obviously the car's not a sleeper, it is a Mustang, but people, whenever I stop at a red light, are going to expect, a 462 valve, and it'll be a stock hood, so they'll be none the wiser, but there is actually a Coyote hiding under the hood. Whereas if we have a big cowl hood, there's a little bit more options that could be under there, and they could expect a little bit more. Now, I know that this doesn't look like it'll clear right now, because it won't, obviously. But this is just mocked up right now so that we can run it. I'm going to end up getting a 90-degree elbow here, and then we're going to pretty much position this downward and then loop it back to that direction. He didn't include any of the shielding for this, which sucks, but I don't know that it would even work for this specific instance. So we're going to see, maybe eventually I'll fab something up so that this isn't a complete hot air intake, because obviously, with it being the way it is, it's just going to be sucking hot air. It will have a little bit of an area where we get some cool air, but obviously it's not ideal. But we're going to get that elbow, try and make this thing work, because I did get a really good deal on it. Now, the next question you guys have is probably about all this wiring. What's all this stuff for? This is actually the custom harness that Nathan Hensley offers for you to be able to run your stock gauges. Eventually I'm going to run all this stuff through conduit, and it's obviously not going to be running across like this. I literally just have it run across right now to loop back to the oil pressure sending unit. All I wanted was to see if this thing would have oil pressure once it ran. So I literally just ran it across there for now and hooked it back into that. So that we could see if this thing gets oil pressure, because I don't have any other way. I could buy the Holley sensor and plug that into the connector that they provide, but in the long run I want the stock gauges to work, so I'm not going to go through all of that just to see the parameters for now. I'll just run this thing across so that we can see it. But yeah, next thing guys, if you guys are just trying to run this thing and you haven't finished everything out, this is the stock trans harness. For whatever reason guys, you need to have this thing plugged in order for the stock. If you guys are running the stock starter circuit, you need to have the trans harness hooked up. I ran this thing with I can show you guys here in a second. I ran it with the stock starting circuit for the 4.6, and for whatever reason I could not get this thing to crank over, and messed with it. I ended up going through some wiring diagrams, and it ended up being, once I plugged this thing in, the starter started working instantly. So make sure you guys have this plugged in. You guys don't have to have any of the sensors plugged in. We are eventually going to obviously go through and plug the sensors into the T56, but for now we just have it here so that the starter will work. All right guys, so over here I did this for a few different reasons, mainly for simplicity, but also it doubles as another jump starter / charging area. I ran because I relocated the battery to the trunk, I ran a positive lead from the trunk to the front and did a bulkhead connector. So on the opposite side of this, on the inside of this fender well, as you can see right there, there's a positive terminal that runs up and through there, goes into the car, and comes right here to this bulkhead connector, and then runs right here where the stock battery would have been. And then right there I have a negative terminal, and it comes out right here and then grounds itself to the body. And I did this so that you can run the factory battery harness and starter harness. So you pretty much, right here where your battery would be, you just take your stock harness, hook it up to those bulkhead connectors, and then run leads to your battery in the back, and everything will run like it used to before. It just seemed a lot easier to me. So I just ran the short little lead here to the relay box, so that gives you power to all of your electronics inside the car, so on and so forth. And then the other one runs itself all the way down and gives power to your starter. And I just looped that around. I used a couple P clamps on the forward studs of the oil pan. You can see one right there. Looped it around and then back to the starter. I need to get some heat shielding for the wires, but for now this will work. But yeah, you guys can run all of that factory stuff, not have to go through a whole bunch of customization. There may be a better way guys, but for me that just seemed like an easy way. Next up guys, the vacuum lines and vacuum ports. So I just ran a vacuum line from this big port right here in the center of the intake. This is super long, but I just have it here for operational purposes for the moment. Then we ran from a T1 is going to the fuel pressure regulator. It requires vacuum. And then the other one comes up into the car and runs to the Holley internal 1-bar map sensor. There is a map sensor inside here, and all you gotta do is just run a vacuum line to it. So you have manifold pressure. And again, guys, this is not how it's gonna be, obviously. I'm just running this bigger line to a step down right now, and then I have a T and stuff set up for this. This is just to run it, guys. This isn't how it's gonna be forever. The other port here runs to your PCV valve on your valve cover. And then this one I just plugged off. I think this one might be for some sort of evap, but we're not gonna end up using it. So I just plugged that one off. This one was already plugged off previously. And then there's another one on the back that I plugged off. I actually have the plug kit here. I got it off of Amazon. There's a whole bunch of just assortment of plugs. So yeah, just check that out if you guys need to find plugs for that stuff. I'm sure auto parts store sells all that stuff, but it was just easy to get on Amazon and have a whole kit instead of trying to figure out what I needed. But yeah, that is the vacuum lines. Next up is the battery. So the battery's in the trunk now, got it all mounted up. This stuff, obviously, again, guys, is just here for running at this time. This stuff is way too long. This is the leads for the fuel pumps. I still need to cut those off. I just ran them to this terminal so that we could get it to start up. Same for the negative cable. This isn't how it's gonna be. I'm actually gonna end up running a fuse to this so that in the future, if we ever have any sort of issue with the starter circuit or whatever it may be, this is on a fuse so that we don't burn everything up, burn the car down. But I ran, again, this needs to be shortened, but I ran the relays right here. It's kind of hard to see, but I did rivet nuts so that these can be taken on and off. Not that they need to be, but I just thought it'd be a cleaner look than trying to use self-tapping screw. So I did rivet nuts so you can take these on and off. And then this runs down through here. And I actually did a hole right here. I'm gonna end up running, I have a grommet for it already. I still need to put it on, but it runs through the back part of the car and then up and down to the fuel pumps. All right, so next up, guys, I'll talk a little bit about the fuel system. I ran into a few hurdles trying to get this fuel system done. So the first thing is the Division X fuel hat requires you for your stock GT tank to cut out the basket for the old fuel pump out of the tank. Maybe not necessarily cut it out, but you need to like beat it out with a hammer pretty much. There's not too many people online that'll show you how to take it out. I attempted to take mine out. Everything seemed to be good. I ended up getting it out of there and I got the pumps put in, got the tank put back in, ran all the lines, so on and so forth. Go to put gas in it, and it turns out whenever I was beating the old basket out of the tank, out of the GT tank, I ended up putting just a little bit of a pinhole in the bottom of the tank and it was leaking, which sucks. But doing more research, the 0304 Cobra from the Terminator Cobra, the fuel tank from those is actually a much better system. It has baffles in the bottom of the tank to keep it from sloshing away from the pumps and starving them. So if you guys are putting any sort of high horsepower, taking corners kind of hard, and you have low fuel, with the GT tank, it has no sort of baffle system. So if you take a hard corner, it could starve your pumps, possibly lean out your engine, and it won't be very good for you. So all in all, even though it sucks that we ended up ruining the GT tank, it was an upgrade in the end to go to the 0304 Cobra tank. I'll put a picture here of the baffle system and everything inside of that tank. It is a much superior tank after looking at the GT tank on the inside and this one. So it wasn't that big of a deal. But also the Division X fuel hat sits down into the 0304 Cobra tank much easier. Whenever I went to the GT tank, even without that basket in there, it felt really, really tight. Like it didn't want to seat all the way because like the depth of the tank wasn't quite right. The 0304 Cobra tank, it sat right down in there. It felt like it was actually made for the tank, bolted right on, zero issues. I will say if you guys do that, when you order the Division X fuel hat, make sure you choose the 0304 Cobra fuel level sending unit, because the stock GT fuel level sender will not work with the 0304 Cobra tank. That was another issue I ran into. Got everything put in and the GT fuel level sender wouldn't work with that tank. So ended up having to order one. I did find one for about $100 online, so wasn't too bad. I think that Lethal Performance charges, I want to say like $150 or $160 for a fuel level sender. So if you guys want to choose nothing for that and then just buy one, I think I got one from Year One for $100. Maybe that'd be a better option, save you $50, $60. But that was some of the hurdles that we had to run into with the tank. All right, so I got the regulator all set up in here. Again, this isn't its final resting point. I ended up, the way that I routed the return hose, it ended up coming up a little bit short, so this is as far as I can get into the engine bay. I actually ordered, I think it's inside the car, I ordered more hose and some connectors. So we're actually going to extend that a little bit so that I can keep the way that I routed it, because I really like the way that I routed it. It seemed like the most natural way kept it out of the way of everything. If you guys route it differently, you might not run into that issue. But if you do, it's not hard to just add an extension. But yeah, so this is your feed, which is your stock line. And then it runs into this fitting right here. And then this is the feed that goes actually to it. I still haven't put these crimps on yet. I wanted to make sure that once I get this thing put in its final position, I want to make sure that this line's not too long, so I didn't want to end up crimping those. They still seal just fine for now. But yeah, it goes right up to here, and then it comes with all the fittings and everything that you need to connect it to the stock fuel rail. So that's pretty much the whole system so far. I came up into the wheel well right here. It's not zip tied up yet in the position that it needs to be, because obviously I still need to put that extension hose on here. But all in all, it wasn't too bad to do this whole fuel system. Obviously, we just ran into issues with the fuel tank, and then we just got to extend that, but it's not a big deal. All right, guys, so we ended up running the Terminator X Max under the passenger seat. Holley sells a bracket for Fox bodies and SN95s so that you can mount either their Terminator X or their X Max underneath the seat. I believe they offer one for the Dominator and stuff too, and maybe this one works for the Dominator. I'm not 100% sure. But if you're running these ECUs, you can run them underneath the seat with this bracket. I believe the bracket's like $100. So if you guys want to fab something up, more power to you. It's just easy for me to pick this one up. It might have been a little bit cheaper. It was like 75 to $100 somewhere in there. But I ran all of the harnesses and stuff through here. I actually have pull this up. The coil drivers are mounted up in here in this sill, hidden underneath of this. Once this is down, you can't see them at all. And then the VVT ECU is hiding up in here. I used rivet nuts on the trans tunnel pretty much and bolted it in there so you can remove it or put it back in whenever. You don't have to use self-tapping screws. And then I mounted the relay right here up in there. Right now I just have this wire running here for the handheld touchscreen display just to sit there for now. Eventually I'm going to do a little bit more permanent routing for that, but that'll work for the moment. All right, guys, and I didn't walk through like the full detail of how to wire this thing in, but honestly, if you just follow the instructions, it's super simple. You pretty much just have to plug in all the connectors on the engine. You have to run one wire to the brake pedal switch, one wire to a 12-volt switched ignition source, and then run straight to the battery. It's super simple, super easy, guys. If you guys want me to do a video in the future, I can. Just comment down below and I can show you how I routed everything for the ECU and stuff. But it was super easy. I would highly recommend the Holley. Took no time at all. But yeah, now that we got everything done, if we turn this on, you can hear the fuel pumps maybe on there priming. But now we have full power to the ECU and everything is working. Go back. You will, whenever you guys start this up, you're gonna have to do the setup wizard, and then you'll have to do a throttle position sensor set. Just follow the instructions, answer everything accordingly. Holley does have a video on their website to show you how to walk through all this thing, but it's honestly really easy. But yeah, we got everything up here going again. I don't have enough fuel in there yet for the fuel gauge to work, but the oil pressure gauge should work once we start it up. As you can see, we got all the lights on that now, and everything here is all good. And it has like your tuning stuff, basics, advanced, and advanced fuel, closed loop, advanced learning, advanced idle. Go back, and advanced features, nitrous controller, boost controller, launch, so on and so forth. Logging, you can log all the parameters that you want. Back. I should be using a little stylus, but it's fine. Tuning, yeah, we already went in there. Wizard, so you can do the setup, and then you can monitor stuff in here. Just do monitors. We'll do sensors, and you can change all this stuff, guys. Idle, multi-gauge, You can look at vitals, air fuel ratio, sensors. But yeah, pretty cool setup, guys. And then with the key on, you guys can possibly hear the fuel running. Honestly, we have way too big of fuel pumps for this. Twin 465s. There we see good pressure. You might actually hear the fuel flowing through there. We honestly have really big fuel pumps for this, but it's not gonna hurt anything. The regulator obviously regulates all of it, keeps 60 PSI steady onto the main feed line. And then if we ever run more power, we have more than enough pump. So I don't regret for the price. I think it was only like $70 extra, guys, going with the extra fuel pumps. But yeah. Without further ado, guys, let's see if she runs. It runs, guys. I am so happy. All of this hard work, guys, is paying off. We're finally getting there. At this point in the video, I've actually ran it twice now. Both times it started up perfectly, instantly. First try, it started right up, no hesitation. It did get a little bit high in the RPMs when it first started up. I think that's just the Holley system trying to learn itself. Obviously, you know, it doesn't really know anything what's going on. This engine hasn't ran, as far as I know, in years. So for me, for it to start up instantly like that is a huge sigh of relief for me. We are actually getting somewhere with this thing, guys. Soon enough, we will be on the road. We just got to obviously start tidying stuff up, getting everything in its final position. We still need to get a drive shaft put in it. We need to get the front suspension put together, the hood back on it, all this stuff, guys. But we are getting there. So stay tuned, guys, if you guys want to see this thing get on the road. Obviously, it's running now, so we know that we're going somewhere in the right direction. So stay with me, guys. But I will catch you guys in that next video.